Welcome back to the Trend Report podcast, everyone. For those of you that didn't tune into the last session, my name is Trevor Block, and I'm going to be taking over the Trend Report for the month of March to take a little bit of a different approach in talking to some second generation and actually a fourth generation that I have today to look at the next perspective of our industry. So I was on the most recent session with Sid to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be talking about, and really taking a different approach to how to view our industry. And so again, my name is Trevor Block. I work with InDeal. I'm the brand engagement manager. I spend a lot of time on live sessions there. And Sid was actually one of my mentors. And so taking over his podcast has been extremely exciting for me. But I'd like to introduce today's guest. We have Liam Kirkbride. How are you doing today, Liam?
Great. How are you?
I am good. Thanks for asking. So just before we jump into today's conversation, a couple minutes ago, I just learned that you're a fourth generation, which a little bit changes the promotion of how I've been doing this event, which is mainly second generations. But would you mind just taking a little bit of time telling us about you and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am currently a regional sales manager at Davis Furniture in High Point, North Carolina, where we are a manufacturer. But yeah, like Trevor said, I grew up in the furniture industry. I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is really the heart of office furniture. And it's kind of funny that I work in High Point right now because a lot of people look at Grand Rapids and High Point as the two, kind of the two centers. So really my career and my life has always had furniture in it, the furniture industry in it. Speaking to the fourth generation aspect, I really only learned that the other day, but I was talking to my dad about it, and my dad is the editor of Business of Furniture magazine. So he is, he is really familiar with the industry, been around it a long time. But I found out the other day that my grandpa used to be in sales at Herman Miller. And then my great grandpa worked in manufacturing for Stowe Davis, which eventually became Steelcase Wood. So it was kind of cool because, I usually think about my dad as a connection to the industry, but it goes back even further.
That's definitely a big snippet of knowledge to take in right before jumping on a podcast to talk about second generations. But it's funny. We were
kind of blew my mind.
We were just talking about it. That's it's one of the things we'll discuss kind of as we move forward. But being a second generation really creates a good opportunity, and it really develops your perspective and really kind of fast tracks your journey in terms of learning this industry. And so I want to spend a little bit of time just talking about Liam's journey. I know that recently he got a new job at Davis, and congratulations to that. So just want to make sure I threw that out there. Thanks. But would you mind spending a little bit of time just talking about kind of your industry journey? So how you got into it, some of the progress you made, some of the decisions, and pretty much where it's brought you to today.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, the industry has really been a part of my life since I was a kid. So I grew up going to NeoCon, big trade show in Chicago with my dad. And really, I think the first time I went, I was probably 11 or 12. So there's some old pictures floating around there of me, just a little kid going around. And really, I was just holding his bags for him, his camera bags, his equipment. And then he would send me ahead to go talk to manufacturers who were at the show and just basically say, hey, Rob's going to be there in, 15 minutes. So it wasn't much, but being there with him and being able to see the industry in that capacity really made a lasting impact on me. Made a lot of great connections in the industry as well. And so when it came time to go to college for me, I went to Michigan State, and I did 2 internships with 2 furniture manufacturers, AIS in Boston my sophomore year. And then after that internship, that's when I was exposed to sales for the first time. And that's really when I realized I wanted to go into sales, was getting that exposure at AIS. After AIS, the next summer, I specifically was looking for an internship that would expose me more to the sales side of things. And that's when I found NWork, which NWork is a really special company in Lowell, Michigan, so just outside of Grand Rapids, and did a summer there interning with them, learning about sales. And then when I was ready to graduate Michigan State, I was looking for a manufacturer who would fast track me to the field, right? After being at AAS and after being at NWork, I knew I wanted to go to the field. So I was looking around the industry, and I was familiar with KI in that, just going to NeoCons and meeting Brian Cranky with my dad and just hearing about them that way. So I was looking on their website, and they had a program in place where basically you would work in their corporate office and then learn within that and then move into the field from there. So that's what I did. I worked at KI for about 8 months in our corporate headquarters in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and then moved down to, I got connected with their North Carolina team, accepted a position to move down to the Raleigh-Durham area in North Carolina, repped KI for about 3 years in the territory before getting connected to Jeffrey Rosner, who's a vice president of sales at Davis. And, we connected right away. It was around that time that I was accepted into my MBA program at North Carolina State. And I realized, while I was repping for KI, that I really wanted to move into leadership. And in order to do that, having an MBA is really important. I felt like I needed to round out some of the other areas of my education, that are involved with running a business. So that's kind of how I ended up at Davis, and I couldn't be happier. It's been a couple months, but it's just been fantastic, and just working hard.
So again, congratulations on the new role. It's extremely exciting. And so I want to take a little bit of time and put a little bit of a lens on that journey that you just explained. And so kind of throughout the month of March, we're going to be looking specifically at how the newer generation kind of moves through the industry. Mm-hmm. So what were some of the benefits? What were some of the restrictions of being a second generation throughout that journey?
Sure. Yeah, well, I think that it gave me a lot of advantages. Actually, I was familiar with it. I understood the industry. And so much of being a college student, it's up in the air, right? You're trying to figure this out. You're around all these really successful, smart individuals who are trying to do the same thing as you. So you're trying to navigate career fairs and your future and trying to figure out what all this looks like. So in this whirlwind of things, you're looking for some familiarity. You're looking for something solid that you can connect with and that you can build your career on and be successful with. And that's what the furniture industry was to me. I knew about it. I felt comfortable with it. It's been something my family did for a while, and I just naturally gravitated to it because of that. So I'm really thankful that my dad is part of the industry. Aside from just being able to talk to him about it and him understand it, instead of, my friends who are like, still think I work at like Lazy Boy, or a residential manufacturer. It's just, it's been really, really key for my development and my career so far.
It's funny listening to you say that, because we had a little bit of a different experience coming up. I've only been in the industry for about 3 years, but for about 22 years of my life, I had not a clue what my dad did on a day-to-day basis. And then as soon as I came in, I don't think I've sat down for a family dinner and not been able to talk about furniture or industry for at least 3/4 of it. So it's interesting to see kind of you starting off going to NeoCon and to where you are now versus me, who tried to understand, but just didn't realize how cool and important this industry is. So it's fun to see kind of the different point of views. And as a second generation, no two of us have the same journey kind of moving up through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no question about that. I think what makes the industry stand out, though, really is just being able to be creative. I think that I compare it a lot to the auto industry because I'm from Michigan, and that's just, everybody was familiar with it. GM and Ford and Fiat Chrysler being in Michigan, it was natural to kind of compare it to that. But what I think a lot of people don't realize about the furniture industry is you have a lot of the same distribution structure in place as the auto industry. But, with furniture, there's that added on creativity about in being able to design spaces, right? And create environments out of the product combinations that you're selling, right? Which is a lot different than just, selling one car or, managing one dealer where it's not, there's that added level of creativity that I think is really special.
Yeah, the one thing that stood out to me too, and it's conversations that I've kind of had since joining the industry, is how much time people spend at their workstations.
Yeah.
It takes up a lot of, your free time. It takes up a lot of your life. And so it's about creating the environment that kind of pushes where your head's at when you're doing your work. So, comparing it to the auto industry, I find that extremely interesting because you spend so much time in your car driving around, you do a lot of things there. But when you go back to your workstation, it's almost, you sit down in your space and you automatically shift your mindset to, what the projects are, what the expectations are. So it's really interesting to mention that. And, the biggest thing that I've been able to see is how our industry switched from selling products to selling solutions. And I feel like that's something that's been extremely huge over the past 2 years, especially, is here are the solutions, here's some of the benefits of it, here's the best way your team can utilize it, and understanding your team to offer these products too. So I love the approach you took on that in terms of comparing to the auto industry, because it really shows, how much time people are spending in their workstation, how much time people are spending in their cars. So I love that analogy that you put there. So I want to spend a little bit of time focusing on your perspective of the industry. So I'm just going to start off with a very general question. What do you love about the industry?
Yeah. Well, I think I touched on that a little bit already, just the creativity aspect for me. I think that, design is the ability for somebody like me who's in sales to be involved in the design and the creation of an entire space is something that's really unique. And I think it's about building awareness of that. I think that's the key to the industry being successful in the long run, is just, people are more familiar with the auto industry because it's a direct to consumer business, right? And so you see, you're buying cars in your everyday life, but you're not really, maybe you're buying a chair occasionally out of a catalog, but you're not really doing it at the same level as, these amazing design firms who are creating these incredible spaces and coming up with new solutions to challenge the historical the history of being in a cubicle and having one workstation that you're assigned to. I think you actually bring up an interesting point with that too, because as we're seeing the trends over the last couple of years where people are working more from home, and that is really, I think, is going to be important for attracting new professionals to the industry as well. Because a lot of large companies nowadays, it's something that they're offering, and it's just kind of standard in their package. And so exploring that, and I think figuring that out is going to be key to attracting young talent.
Yeah, and one of the things that, this is just kind of my point of view, but the transition we've made to a hybrid workplace really expands the flexibility we can have for people joining the industry. Because working in an office, obviously, over the past 2 years, we've seen it might not be fit for everyone, but some people are more comfortable working at home. Me personally, I've been working at home since starting in the industry. And so I've really gotten to a routine and gotten comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And of course, it's incredible to be face-to-face with people, but the opportunity to offer the hybrid work model and having people working from home, working in the office, bringing people together to collaborate, and then kind of everyone having their distinct workstations, whether it's at the office or whether it's at home, creates a huge opportunity. And I think it makes it easier for people to see some opportunity in this industry, because a lot of other companies, the hybrid work's been around forever. And I know this is something that's been said for pretty much the whole past 2 years, but hybrid work's been around forever. It's just figuring out the best way to implement it based on, your team, your culture, and things beyond that in terms of, people's personal lives. So I really think there is huge opportunity to the hybrid work model and to the way that our industry can offer solutions for not only in the office, but also at home. And with that, Q, I just want to ask you, what do you see as some of the biggest opportunities in the future of the industry? This is going to be one of my power questions throughout all of these sessions that we have coming out in March. And so, Liam, from your perspective, what are some huge opportunities that you see kind of having that younger perspective of the industry?
Well, without a doubt, for me, it's just more technology integration into the industry. I don't know what that even looks like yet, but what we're seeing with the metaverse and beyond the metaverse, even, right? It's like there's this whole new thing that's coming that we don't even know what it's going to look like yet. And virtual reality has been around for a long time at this point, relatively like 10 years. And it's interesting because the first time that I heard about VR, and I didn't think about it, I was a kid pretty much, so I didn't think about it in the way of how this would transition to furniture industry. But throughout my internships and even being at manufacturers now, it's an interesting thing to think about, because I don't think the technology is there yet, but I think it's coming. It is definitely coming. So I think that, the most successful companies moving forward are going to be manufacturers and dealers and designers that embrace that technological integration as it comes and get creative with it. Virtual reality, you can think about all of the different possibilities that, being able to, instead of just immerse yourself in that experience more, I think is a really valuable selling tool, is going to be a really valuable selling tool for dealers, especially. So I think the key to success moving forward is embracing that technology.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of technology that's rolled out into our industry over the past little bit of time. And, VR is one of the things that I find extremely cool, because it really puts people into some of the solutions that this industry has to offer. And, just a question for you, is there any other sources of technology, something similar to VR or anything else that you've seen that's kind of struck interest that you think it might be interesting to implement within the industry?
Yeah, I think that there's possibility for app creation too. There's the more that you can get in front of the individual consumers, the better. And again, it's about awareness. So something as simple as like an app that you can, this may exist already, but that you can scan an upholstery or something and figure out exactly what that upholstery is. And if you're a designer and you're on the fly, you're touring a building, you scan a chair with your phone, and it references a database of all of the different major textile manufacturers. And, you can take that then and move it to your idea board. And so there's a lot of ideas. I mean, that's just one example, but, of apps that we talked about working from home and working flexibly. I think that is an example of something that I think the industry could do more of, and bring it right to your phone, right outside of the computer. That's going to really change things.
And for all the listeners, I'm sure you're probably laughing that the two younger generations are talking about technology and how to implement our industry so you can have it all at your palm of your hands. So, it's funny because everyone talking about some of the biggest opportunities this industry has is it usually comes back to technology. And the thing that people love about it is the people. And so figuring out a way that you can communicate communicate with the people within the industry through technology, obviously with the face-to-face interactions not being at the high that we're used to over the past 2 years, it creates a huge opportunity for looking at what technological solutions there are to not only bring the industry a little bit closer, but create more opportunity to kind of, again, build the awareness of what it is. And so one of the things that we've spent a little bit of time talking about was the awareness of the industry and kind of the best path that you can take joining it. So do you mind telling kind of the listeners a little bit about what we talked about before in terms of how to bring people in and how to keep people locked into this industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it goes back to a couple of things I've touched on already, but if you kind of put yourself into the mind back, when you were in college, right? And you're trying to figure it out, right? I can just remember going to these career fairs and there being, 50, 60, 70 companies that are all trying to get your attention, and you're automatically gravitated to the ones that you recognize, right? So at Michigan State, Amazon was always had the biggest line, right? There was this huge line of people wanting to talk to Amazon because it was this exciting new company at the time. And it was like, I want to go work at Amazon because I know that they're a successful company. And a lot of other, that's what attracts, I think that's what really attracts college kids who are trying to figure this out, is like, they want to be successful. They want to build their career. And to do that, they are looking for something that they trust. They're looking for a brand that they trust, right? And that's, for us in Michigan, it was auto industry. Ford and GM hired hundreds of people from Michigan State and other universities throughout the state, constantly. It was, and everybody knew who they were. And, in Grand Rapids, people know who Steelcase is and Herman Miller and Hayworth, but it doesn't go that much far beyond that. And even at the career fairs, people weren't lining up to talk to Steelcase or Herman Miller the same way that they were talking to these other Fortune 500 companies. So that's why I keep coming back to awareness, because if you can get young people to understand what the industry is made up of and the advantages of being able to use your creative side while doing the same thing that you might be doing at an auto manufacturer, that's the key. That's how you reach people outside of second generation, third, fourth generation like us, is developing that trust and building those brands and getting in front of young people when they're when at college, and even before then in high school. I think just to add on one more point, I'll tell you a quick story. So one of my friends at Michigan State was he was an engineer, right? So Herman Miller actually sponsored a class at Michigan State where their challenge was for a group of these engineers to design a new product for Herman Miller. And there was more specific than that, but the bottom line is, it exposed him to the company. And then he connected with me because he knew that I was kind of interested in that too. And he said, "Hey, do you know who Herman Miller is?" And I said, "Yeah, they're one of the biggest names in the industry." And he said, "That's so cool. I'm doing this project for them." And he had no idea about furniture. I mean, he would never have known outside of Herman Miller engaging with him in the classroom right there, right? And it's easy for them to do because it's local. But what my challenge is really to encourage manufacturers and even dealers and design firms to get out into colleges and universities and just spread the word and the awareness about the industry.
So one of the things I just wanted to kind of add on to your story there is that I've only been a part of the industry for just under 3 years, and going out and talking to some of the people that have made it and really start moving along their journey have some of the coolest stories. And it's funny when I'm talking to friends and, they're asking about work, even though they have no idea what I do on a day-to-day basis, they're asking about work. And it's, the one thing that always comes across is the people you meet. And it's interesting because luckily for me, I got the opportunity to connect with a lot of second generations in a few initiatives, including Liam and some of my other guests that I'm going to be having on the podcast. But, to kind of follow up on what Liam was saying, is having someone that you can tell your story to. Every single company within our industry has such a cool story of how they started, where they are today, and some of the challenges, some of the things you're going to do to try to step over those challenges. It creates a huge opportunity, and people love kind of seeing the progress of what you have the ability to do when you run into a road bump. What are some of the things that you can approach, and just, kind of talking a little bit like an open book, explain to them some of the problems you deal with, some of the things that you solve, some of the directions that you can take with it. And, when looking at bringing in new talent and looking at, kind of the future of what your main goals are in the industry, it creates a huge opportunity. And I think Liam covered that perfectly in terms of how to bring people in. And I find it funny that Amazon was the one with the huge lineup, and knowing you probably looked right at the contract furniture and just bolted over there to have a conversation. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was like scanning the list. I'm like, all right, are any of the majors here? Like who's going to be at the fair? And everybody else is like, oh yeah, I've got my meetings lined up with Ford and Amazon. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to see Steelcase later. Like who?
That's what I call a trendsetter right there. So I want to spend a little bit of time just talking about your perspective on the manufacturing side. So throughout the next few weeks, I really wanted to make sure that I spent some time talking about kind of the four major buckets within our industry, including dealerships, manufacturing, rep groups, and design. And so kind of throughout the month of March, I want to make sure that I really spend some time digging into the perspective. So kind of the one power question that's been getting a little bit more inflated throughout the past 2 years is talk a little bit about the supply chain and what some of your perspectives on that are.
Yeah. Wow. It has just been, it's been unprecedented. I started in 2019. So I had a year to experience what it was like working in a quote unquote normal distribution without any issues, right? And so the challenge over the last couple of years has been intense for a lot of manufacturers, and some have been more positioned to absorb it than others. And for somebody like Davis, speaking to my situation right now, who uses a lot of European design, right? We I'm going to pause there.
Yeah.
So somebody like Davis, who sources a lot of, component pieces from Europe and is now looking at the challenge of, okay, well, a container, before all of this happened was $4,500, and now it's 3.5 times that. I mean, that's just, it's thrown such a wrench in everything from pricing to lead times, which is really frustrating because, especially in sales, your goal is to satisfy and create the best experience possible for your customers. So, you're in some ways, your hands are kind of tied because it's something that everybody is going through, and it's a challenge that we're facing. With Davis in particular, we introduced a new product this year that was developed with a designer out of Germany, and it was our first partnership working with him, right? And traditionally, Rob Easton, our vice president of design, and Danny Davis, our owner and CEO, would go fly to Europe and work with and understand his processes, right? And meet him and meet his team. And then we would bring him back to High Point and host him at our new showroom in our space and have him understand a little bit about who we are. And it would be this really interactive process where they would, interact in person and go back and forth on ideas. And, for the last couple of years, they really couldn't do that. So I think even beyond the supply chain, it's just the limit of travel too has been really tough, and it's presented a unique challenge, but it's something that in the end I think that everybody's overcoming. So
I like the approach you took on that. And, just for kind of a follow-up question, so one of the things I wanted to try to take advantage of is looking at
Mhm.
what the next generation, you talked a little bit about the process of everything there. So for someone who would be new to the industry, or for someone that has spent time kind of promoting a manufacturer and some of the benefits of working there, could you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about if a new hire were to come in today, how would you explain the excitement about working in a manufacturer to them? Talk a little bit about the
Yeah.
progress of
Yeah.
working there, some of the opportunities, some of the things that you're going to have to kind of overcome. But I want to see
Yeah.
what the promotion perspective would look like for all the manufacturers tuning in. I want to see what the next generation would look like compared to their pitch.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So for me, it's being hands-on and being able to interact with the process from the very beginning, the inception, the first steel that's powder coated, all the way through to the end process, right? And as a manufacturer, our job is to know the product that we're selling inside and out, so we can be a resource and add value to our dealer communities and our reps, right? That's my number one goal, is to be an expert on the product that we manufacture. And one of the ways that we do that is, I go out and I'm in the plants every day where we manufacture this stuff. And instead of, and this was a big contrast to my previous job as a rep, I couldn't just go to the plant if there was an issue and look at it, right? But now I can. So if there's a problem with an upholstery problem or something, or the wood stain on this came out a little bit different than what we were expecting, I can go over to the plant and look at that with my own eyes and work with the plant managers who are actually building this stuff and say, okay, how about we try this? How about we try this different process? Or, have we tried creating it or doing it this way? And just working with them in person has been really, really exciting. And I think a big part of the best part about working at a manufacturer is working with this team of incredibly talented people that have a lot of different talents than you in many ways. Like I don't know the math behind a CNC machine or something like that, like, but working with people who do is a really really enriching experience. You learn a lot doing that, and you come away with really strong knowledge about your product base. Whereas a dealer, the challenge is you have a bunch of different lines in many cases that you have to know and you have to understand. Whereas a manufacturer, you're keyed in and you're focused on just your offering, right? So I don't know if that makes sense, but
Made sense to me.
yeah.
But one of the things that I like to look at the products in our industry is kind of coming from the perspective of in deal. I don't quite see things exactly from the manufacturing side. I don't quite see things from the dealer side or the rep group side. But one of the things that I find extremely interesting beyond just the product is that when these products are placed into the end user's spot location,
Mhm.
is that these products are kind of the face of a lot of different experiences that people have when going to that company or going to that environment. And, one of the funny things is, I forget who I was having a conversation with, but they were talking about some of the stories that they've had that they can remember the product just from being a part of the industry. And it was a job interview, sitting on a chair and remembering how nervous they were. But for some reason, they associate that look of chair with being nervous for their first job interview joining the industry. And then you got other people sitting at boardrooms getting their first promotion and
Yeah.
associating those chairs and tables with that excitement of having the hard work pay off. So,
Mhm.
it's interesting to listen to your side of, the benefits of being a part of a manufacturer, really the value that the team brings beyond just your own kind of contributions to that. But from an outside perspective, I find it so interesting looking beyond our industry and how these products affect kind of every person's life and some of the scenarios that they have sitting on those. So just one thing I wanted to kind of add on to there. So Liam, I want to just spend a little bit of time kind of doing a little bit of a wrap up here. So for everyone listening in, what is one piece of advice that you'd like to leave with them and to really challenge them on the way that they approach business?
Yeah. Well, my challenge to the industry, if you work at a manufacturer or a dealer or design firm and you're in a position of leadership, I my challenge is to go out there and build that trust with the younger generation. People will love the contract furniture industry if they can only be made aware, of everything that entails. So my challenge is to go out and expose young people to this. And if you're younger and you're in the industry already, like Trevor and I, and listening to this, more power to you. Fantastic. We're so excited to get connected to young people, even because it's rare to find these days in our industry. So we want to connect with you, and we want to kind of work with you to booster the industry together as much as we can, and so spread the word. That's my challenge.
Well, with that being said, I know that Sid has his show notes on here, so we'll make sure I have my contact information and Liam's contact information on there as well. If you have any questions or anything that you want to continue the conversation with, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are always open for discussions, and Liam knows that because I call him and just talk his ear off for hours about nothing. But Liam, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate you coming to join me. So I really appreciate the time that you spent.
Yeah, this was great. Thanks so much for having me.
So just as we wrap up, a quick reminder, throughout the month of March, I'm going to be taking over the podcast. The name for it is the Trevor Report. So we're going to be looking at the second generation, or in this case, the fourth generation, and looking at some of the perspectives and point of views that our industry should take into consideration. So with that being said, thank you again, Liam, and we'll see you next time.